Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Middle Ground, Mike. This afternoon, we have a great guest. I'm not super great with names. Introduce yourself. Tell us, everybody. I mean, we had a great conversation. She is an extremely intelligent woman and great conversationalist.
My name is Zafra Lerman.
Give us a little bit of your background, Zafra.
My background is that I grew up in a developing country. I have a bachelor, master, and PhD in chemistry. I did research for many years till I decided to change direction because I believe strongly that science education is a human right and belongs to all, and everybody should be able to learn and understand science in order to survive in our society. So I was the head of the Science Institute at Columbia College, Chicago, and I developed a way to teach science through art, music, dance, drama, rap, poetry, animation, everything you want. It became very famous and very successful around the world with underprivileged students especially. I am a human rights activist. I started my activities at the Soviet Union when I was going into the Soviet Union with a group of scientists. During the day, I was a scientist. And after midnight, I would go in dark alleys, meet dissidents, then give a seminar at 2 a.m., distribute scientific magazine, take back their CVs, resumes, in order to help to bring them to freedom, and had a lot of success with that. So I'm very happy that I risked my life, but there was a result. And after 9/11, I did the human rights. I chaired the Committee on Scientific Freedom and Human Rights for the American Chemical Society. After September 11, I suggested to the board of the American Chemical Society that the time came to concentrate on the Middle East. That is the most volatile part of the world. And what I suggest is to have a conference that will bring together for 5 days under the same roof scientists from all the Middle East countries, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Palestinian, Jordan, Egypt, the Emirates, all the Middle East, and with several Nobel laureates, and have them develop collaboration on issues that one country cannot solve alone, like water issue, air pollution, climate change, food security, and we worked on curriculum and science education too, and mainly develop friendships and realize what unites all of them and not what separates them. And the effort was to stop demonizing the unknown other. There were already 10 conferences like that with a lot of success. Now we're working on the conference, and we had a lot of results from these conferences. Now, during this period, I'm in touch with all our participants in Iran, and thank God all of them are okay. And the participants in Gaza, with the help of the Egyptian participants, we took them out of Gaza to Egypt. But Egypt doesn't want anybody to stay there. They want them just transition, and they have one young family with children, and Egypt doesn't let them register the kids to school. And I tried for the last year with so many countries to get a visa for this one family so their children can attend school. And every time I get promises, both Arab countries, European countries, the US, Canada, I get promises and then it falls apart. And this is what I'm spending time to try still to help them and hopefully to achieve peace in this part of the world through science diplomacy that is very different than other diplomacy. and can succeed without it. Diplomacy cannot. Science diplomacy doesn't have a language. It's a science. This is the language. Doesn't see religion, doesn't see culture, doesn't see all the differences that people build and fight upon them. And they really, I always like to say that the chemist from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I'm so happy there is Bethlehem in Pennsylvania, so I can use my example that a chemist from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania can communicate very easily to a chemist in Bethlehem on the West Bank without having to know any language. They know the language of science, and this is what unites all these people together.
I mean, that's great. I mean, that's especially, like we were talking before. I mean, diplomacy is it's just needed in the world in general. Especially with something like what you do, and especially just trying to help people get where they should be slash need to be. That's just not an easy thing to do right now. Because with everybody, seemingly the Western world is closing its doors. Not just America; it's pretty much the Western themed world is just shutting the doors.
And I was under pressure to write a book about my methods of teaching science that a lot of people wanted to be able to see it and use it. Now we have a lot of the examples on YouTube, and it's easier for people. Then I was under pressure to write a book about my experience on human rights, the Soviet Union, China after Tiananmen Square, Cuba, Guatemala, Peru. And then I was under pressure to write a book showing that there is a way for people to get together. When the conference is over, you have a feeling that a family reunion ended, not a meeting of people that their governments are hostile to each other. The hugging, the kissing, the tears reminds you a family reunion when people say goodbye. So at the end, I wrote the book. I don't know if you can see it here. It
Yeah,
says
human
it's
rights and peace.
a personal odyssey. And thank God it just came in paperback because they sold it for a lot of money. All the proceeds of this book are going to the Malta conferences because we have to pay the expenses of all the participants. So I'm not getting a penny from this book. It's all going towards the science diplomacy as a bridge to peace in the Middle East. And Amazon has it now on paperback.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know we were talking about science education, you were saying is like a human right. So like, and I think people sometimes forget that like here in America and in the Western world, that's like very common to us. Like we think, well, yeah, I know. But obviously your experience is it's not as common outside of, I'm guessing, the Western world that is as it is here, because it just seems science seems to be everywhere in a lot of our schools. The application is not, but the basis of it is.
Every child is a scientist. Look at them when they are young. They are interested in the world around them. They are interested in how everything works. What happens when they start going to school and having science classes that they lose their interest in science? Every child is born a scientist. They want to explore. The problem is the way it's being. And when it's being taught in a way, I'll take chemistry. When a teacher comes and starts with the structure of the atom, something that is not relevant to the student life, that they cannot relate to that, it looks to them, why am I supposed to know that some particle called the atom has a positive particle called proton and a negative one called electron? They cannot relate to that. But if you teach science in a way that it's relevant to the student life and you start from something that they can understand. You start Chicago is surrounded by nuclear power plants. You start talking about the nuclear power plants and you go down till you get to the atom and describe the atom. This way they understand why they have to know it. And usually I used to tell my students, bring an article that has about scientific issue from the local newspaper. And then when they start reading it, they realize they didn't understand it. Because even to understand an article in the Tribune or the Sun Times that deals with a scientific issue, you have to have some background, because otherwise you cannot understand even that article. And therefore I call it human rights, because I am afraid that if we will leave out a big part of the population without any knowledge, science, as I told you before, teaches critical thinking, what is very important. Critical thinking helps you to distinguish between correct information or misinformation. If you don't have critical thinking, you accept everything that you hear or read on social media. So I am saying, why is it a human right? Because if we will not bring everybody into the scientific technological world that we are moving very fast in this world, we will form two-class society. One that it has knowledge in science and technology, and one that doesn't have. It will not be anymore by divided priority, but it will be by knowledge, because if you will not have any knowledge, you will not be able to function in this society. Hassan from Jordan, King Hussein Brothers, quotes me in his lecture. He's part of the Malta Conference, as he's a big supporter. He always said that what impressed him is the sentence that science education is a human right that belongs to all. He said this is a sentence that he believes very strongly. And therefore I developed a way. I hated to have to show all my knowledge in 1 hour's multiple choice test. And what if I don't feel well? And what if I don't have the inspiration now? Then I will get a bad grade than that. So I told my students that I don't do to others what I hated to be done to me. So therefore, they will never write a multiple choice test, and they will be able to show their knowledge any way they want. So, for example, a group of theater students, why would theater students take chemistry? Where else in the world theater students in college are in a chemistry class and not just one, several science classes? Why? Because when they wanted to show their knowledge on the chemical bond, and there are two important kinds of chemical bonds. I hope your audience will not run away for trying to say a few words scientifically. There is the ionic bond, where one atom gives its electron to the other. The electron is negatively charged, so the other becomes negative. The one that gives it becomes positive, and they attract. This is how you have table salt. Sodium chloride is table salt. This theater student wrote a script that they followed Romeo and Juliet, but just adjusted the words to science, and they explained all the chemical bond in the structure of the atom by following sodium was Romeo, chlorine was Juliet, and because sodium is a metal, is from another side of the periodic table from where is chlorine, that is a halogen. And he tells her, my extra electron was not a fault with you. It was made for you, halogen divine. And then he gives her a case with that. He transfers the electron, and they become table salt, sodium chloride. But when you put sodium chloride in water, the water is polar. So it breaks the ionic bond. And it's Shakespeare, so we need tragedy. So a water molecule arrived and breaks the bond, and then they end all that by all the actors standing with a plaque, take every tragedy with a grain of, and the two of them are the salt standing there. I was in a Shakespeare play, and the actor said something that the intonation sounds to me, I am sodium from the other side. And I looked at the program, and it was this student. So I went after that to talk to him. It was many years after he was my student. And he said to me, everything I learned in college I forgot, but the ionic bond and the periodic table, the structure of the atom, I will never forget because we wrote it
That's awesome.
and this is on our YouTube. Another one was the bond father, like the godfather on the chemical bond. And this is how this student enjoyed learning it. Or students that were in the dance department did a dance on the depletion of the ozone layer. That CNN showed it. Those were
That's awesome.
homeless kids that I worked with and taught them science at night through dance. And CNN did a program on them and showed it 5 times around the world. NBC did a program. Everybody was coming to see. These students, the majority of them went to college, and 2 went for a PhD in biochemistry. I have prisoners that became successful by learning this way, and then managed to come out of prison because of their academic success, and then got a bachelor and a master because they did what they liked. One prisoner said to me, I never took science. I'm afraid of science. I don't know what to do. I said, what do you like? She said, I like music. I like to write songs. I like to sing. I said, fine. So you will show your knowledge this way. And then she wrote a terrific song on the air pollution subject and got a standing ovation. In addition, the National Science Foundation gave us money, developed the same course at Princeton University, and every year my class that was minority, inner city, flew to Princeton for a joint symposium, and usually they were second to.
That is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's all in the book. It's all describes in the book. The media was coming, and they called it a meeting of two cultures because it was a meeting of two cultures.
I mean, that that's a lot of work. I mean, how did you know?
The work of love,
Yes, and when you love something, it's a whole lot easier. It
no
doesn't
doubt.
even feel like work.
And most of the students keep in touch with me.
That's even better.
Yeah, they keep in touch. I have a lot on Hollywood, and they said that their success is not what they studied in film video department, but what they studied in the Science Institute, the critical thinking. They imitate my accent always. They said the critical thinking. I was in Hollywood. I was in a Emmy Award ceremony when my student got the former student got the Emmy Award because he gave all the credit to his success to be in my classes. Yeah, so I was invited. I kept on telling him all the time, "It looks like Hollywood here." He said, "It's Hollywood. It's not like Hollywood."
I mean, Hollywood is a nice place when you get in some of those studios. I've seen like some of like the behind the scenes things, and that
But
stuff
it's
looks.
nice when your former student gets the Emmy.
Yeah, I mean that's even better. You know what? Like, so obviously, you grew up in a different country, but
You can ask which one.
which country did you grow up in?
Israel.
Israel. Oh, okay.
All my degrees in Israel. I got my PhD in Israel at the Weizmann Institute of Science. That is one of the 10 best research institutes in the world.
Wow, that is awesome.
And now remember how all this, too bad I don't have in front of me an email that I got from the people from Gaza. They know that I'm an Israeli. The email that they wrote to me for helping them, you should see this email. They tell me that I should run the world and not the politician, then it would be a better world.
It probably would be. The politicians seem too focused on the wrong things, and not the things that make everybody's life
Somebody
better.
asked me in an interview, what should we do to have peace in the world? I said, remove the politician.
Yeah,
It's
you
a
shouldn't be a
very,
career politician.
very easy thing. And then you will have peace because the people, as I said, if you come to our conference, you think you are in a family reunion.
Yeah, no, and peace is what we need. I'm a big advocate of peace, and some people call it isolation, call it minding our own business to a degree. You know, I think that unintentionally sometimes the U.S. causes wars with the best of intentions for it to not be as much of an issue. Um, I feel like we've kind of strayed away from what made us who we were. But I mean, especially coming from Israel to go. Obviously, you went to the Soviet Union. You said correct. You were like,
Could not have gone to the Soviet Union because Israel did not have a relationship. An
they did not.
Israeli, I
Okay,
could not go to the Soviet Union. I could not go to China after Tiananmen Square.
well, that's right. Yeah,
I needed an American passport in order to be able to do.
it's the
And
Soviet
I
Union.
met
If
Andrei Sakharov. I hope your audience knows who is Andrei Sakharov, but because I'm talking to students these days and they never heard the name, I'll just say that Andrei Sakharov was the father of the hydrogen bomb in the Soviet Union that became the biggest fighter for anti-nuclear weapon, biggest advocate for human rights, and for that he was sent to Gorky, a place where he was isolated completely and could not see people. But I managed to meet with Sakharov, and he told me that I should take a course in Russian because if I would have a translator, it probably would be a KGB agent. So if I want to make sure that I am successful in what I do, I should know Russian. So I took a crash course in Russian. Therefore, I could go alone in dark alleys after midnight because I could speak the Russian language.
the Russian language seems very hard to learn, in my opinion.
Every language people say, but when you learn a language from necessity, it's very different than when you learn a language. I lived in Switzerland too. I worked in the ETH, the Swiss Polytechnicum, and they did not give you lectures in English or like at the Weizmann Institute. It's enough one person that doesn't understand Hebrew, everything is in English. There were a lot of people that did not understand German, but they spoke in German. So I had to go and study German in order to be able to participate. So when you learn a language from necessity, it's very different.
Yeah, I mean that's. I believe they say what necessity is the mother of inventions.
Yeah.
That's because you generally don't mess with something unless you need it. General speaking.
But when you need it, you learn it fast, believe me.
Yeah, yeah, because all your mind just focuses and goes to it. And my gosh, you've been around the world. From your perspective, because obviously the education world has changed a lot, probably from since when were there, left, and where we're at now. What do you see, like for young women, young men, just coming up and looking to do the same things that you do? Like, what do you see as like, hey,
It's
this is going
very
to be a challenge?
interesting. I'll give you an example. Going to China many times, I started going to China in 82 when there was nothing. No roads, no cars, no shops, no restaurant. One shop, friendship shop for the tourists. Chinese were not allowed to enter the hotel, the tourists, different world. But when I went to the university and I asked the senior year in high school, what do you plan to study? What would you like to study? Majority answered me science, the different subject of science and engineering. When I was few years ago and I asked the same question, the majority answered business.
That's a
There
big
were no
difference.
big difference, and sadly, it's here too. because if you go to graduate schools in the good universities, most of the graduate students are not American, they are foreigners. And this, sure, it's easier to study business than to study science. I'm not saying that it's a very easy. One Nobel laureate, I don't know if you know what is the Renaissance Weekend. Clinton started it before he was president, and then you used to see how he takes the helicopter in New Year to Hilton Head to go to Renaissance Weekend. That was by invitation only. And I remember a conversation between a Nobel laureate and what was his name? He had a program, the science guy. What was the
Bill Nye?
Bill Nye, the science
Yep,
guy? And
yep,
there
yep.
was a conversation, and the Nobel laureate said to him, "You are the problem. You make science look like it's a game." And then when the students come and expect to play and explore and all that in science, they are getting disappointed. Science is not a game. Science is hard work. You give them, you prepare them with the wrong impression on what will it be when they come to school to study science. He was really very upset with that because he said science is a hard subject. There is no doubt about it. But it's a wonderful subject. But if you come and expect that it's a game and suddenly you see that you have to work hard, you move to another major. That's it.
Yeah, it's probably the lack of it being fun and convenient why Americans have kind of swayed away from it compared to what they used to.
Now the atmosphere is more science, business, 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 because the young people have in their mind that if you get a degree in business and then MBA, you are a millionaire and nothing else is important in the world. The problem is that the money. My students all majors in arts and communication, and they were telling me that people give them a hard time. Why are you studying subjects like that? You will be poor all your life. And I told them, if you study what you really love, you will be always successful in life. And it's true, my students are very successful.
And that's key. I mean, you have to have a passion for it, you know. I mean, that's just key. Like if you don't have passion, I'm trying to think of a good example that it's at the top of my head. We'll say he's a friend. Um, and he was going to school for computer. It was either computer science or computer engineering, something one of those couple of degrees, and he had just kind of I don't want to say fell out of love with it. And he went to school. He got a bachelor's. He does restaurant work now. He doesn't do. He went spent all that money, and then when he got done, he was like,
Uh,
I'm no longer interested in it. And this is a guy when I was, this is 20, 30 years ago, he was teaching me how to program in, C and on Unix and Linux, all this stuff like way back in the 90s, and now he's like, he doesn't want to touch a computer. He doesn't want to see social media. The only way I talk to him is by phone. He's something like he just cut it all off and he just said, he goes, I don't love it anymore.
is he happy now?
He's happier now than he's ever been.
This is what's important.
Yeah,
This is
it's all
important.
about happiness.
It's all about happiness and money, and there is a lot of evidence that money doesn't bring you happiness.
And money can tend to come from happiness if you're honest with yourself.
Yeah,
Not honest with what people want you to do. You have to be honest with yourself. And that's a hard thing to do. That's a very hard thing to do that I don't think the modern world does a good job enough with young people is being honest with
for
themselves.
sure not. For
Yeah.
sure not. The modern world is misleading the young people.
Yes. I have a high schooler. He's 15, And I talked to him, and some of the stuff he says that he sees in school, I'm like, you got to do what makes you happy, not what everybody else is doing. I said he's considered to have Asperger's technically. If I didn't tell you he had Asperger's, you would have no idea. That's where I started drawing all these issues with, because he can play 8 different instruments at 15 years old. It's crazy. He picks up an instrument. Now, is he a super pro at any one of them in particular yet? No, but he can write his own music. He does all
It's
this stuff.
very annoying, all this diagnosis, you know.
Yes.
Thank God that I don't have, because I would fight with anybody that diagnoses my son. You know, it looks like there is a feeling that you must diagnose everything with every child with something, because every child I know is diagnosed with something.
Oh yeah. With him, it was he had a lack of emotional control when he was super young. It just wasn't something he was able to do. No matter talk to him. But now that he's older, he takes a tiny little pill every day, no issues. He can go, and he only takes it when he goes to school. When he's not in school, he doesn't take it. Perfectly fine functioning individual. And I had said to my wife, I said, I I don't agree with what they say about these kids. So they tried to tell us as well. Like, it was a doctor, she was the head of, she's a really good lady, but I just don't agree with her. But she's the head of the autism center where we took both of our kids. And she goes, well, they consider speech delay autistic. I'm like, well, that means Albert Einstein was autistic because he had tied tongue.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, I said, I didn't speak a full sentence until I was 7-ish, in that ballpark. And she was like, well, you're not autistic. And I said, my point exactly. Just because somebody has something that they're not particularly excelling at doesn't mean something's wrong with them. And that's where I draw a big disconnect with them, because I say, they even, on one of the things, chewing on a pen, like, I'm sure you've seen it. You were a teacher. Kids, while they're doing something, they just chew on a
I
pen.
don't have to see the kids. The students that walk with me take the pens away from me because I'm eating them.
Yeah, and that is, they consider that is actually on a questionnaire. They consider that a tick for autism, and I'm like,
Really?
yeah. I sat there and I'm like, oh my,
I cannot show you all the pens.
I still do it to this day. Like, I'm like, once in a
I cannot
while,
think without.
yeah, and once in a blue moon, it's like it's a tick, that they say you do. Now, I mean, this, I get that, that in certain things, but I guess for me, I don't agree. I don't agree with the diagnosis, and part of it is when I talk to my family doctor. He's been my doctor for almost 20 years, over 20 years now. Been a long time. And he goes, I think he's a little bit more comfortable telling me, something he may not tell a regular patient. And he goes, well, they diagnose all these kids with autism so that the insurance will cover the things they need to get where they need to go. Because
I
if,
say that he's right.
and he goes, so let's say like my son needs speech therapy. He goes to occupational therapy. It's kind of helped him get up to speed. But if he wasn't diagnosed as autism, they would limit him to 10 total visits a year. And he needed a lot more than that. So, and that just made me sit there, and that stuff like that. And then just, talking to other people. And I had a friend where I didn't agree with something politically. He goes, he goes, you're just a crazy left wing nut job. And I've had friends that are left people, if you want to call them, that found you're this. And I'm like, man, can't we just use some common sense? Like, look at something, see it for what we think it could be, and just analyze it and come up with a solution, and not just be, you know, just one word. Like, we got to be diplomatic about things. Everybody's got to understand we're not all going to be the same. And that's okay.
Yeah, I really, and I'm against all these stamps that they put on the kids,
Well,
and
yes.
and it's very American. It's not in any other country like that.
Yeah. No, you know, you being a scientist, I'm sure you know about stem cell therapy, or
Boy.
And so, something like with autism treatment, they talk about, oh, how it's this big epidemic in the United States. And I'm like, well, in Germany, they use stem cell therapy to treat kids with autism, and they're having some pretty good success with it, to where the parts of the brains that are having whatever issue it may have, it helps their brain like develop better. And then the kids, there's no long term confirmation yet, but in America, they're not allowed to do that.
They did not allow research in stem cell. I remember during Bush, they banned all the research. But I think there are autistic kids that cannot talk,
Mhm.
can't do anything. I can see that these kids need treatment. But a child that is normal and can speak and can go to school and has friends and plays the instruments, you know, I don't know what they see that they have to put on, but they say that Elon Musk is on the spectrum.
He's Elon Musk is just a smart guy that's eccentric. I mean,
But they say, if you will read,
yeah,
he's considered on the spectrum. Everybody, I think, that can be considered on the spectrum. And it gives, I think, the profession that diagnosed and works with autistic, there must be a lot of people there that needs to get salaries. It's really, that's
it's
very different. I have a friend, her child cannot say a word. And he is a genius because she found a way with some machine to communicate to him. And what he writes and says, he's a genius, but he cannot talk, he cannot relate. But a child that goes to school, it's very different.
they are. I guess I just, I mean, it's the whole thing of where the diagnosis situation has become more politicized than it is about fact. And I think that that's where the problem is with a lot of the issues when it comes, especially to me, when it comes to science. It's not as much about fact as it's about opinion. And I tell everybody, hey, I think it's always okay to question anything. It's that's totally fine. And I think we always should question something. But until we prove something different, that item's a fact, right? You can challenge it, but you've got to be able to prove it to change it. And sometimes people go, my gut tells me, and I get, listen, I'm a wholehearted believer in your gut instinct. I believe that a gajillion percent, right? But where I, I guess where I may differ from someone like you, who is obviously an extremely smart woman and probably will be, I would never achieve that level, but I sometimes try to see correlation. So, being in the industry that I was in, is sometimes, a good friend of mine taught me, sometimes where there's smoke, there's almost always going to be fire. And so, sometimes if when people do this and then this happens, something in between there is causing it. And the problem is we don't always know how to ask, right? We don't know what to ask, how to ask it. And I think that they don't teach that to kids, or if they do, I'm not a public school teacher, so I'm not knocking any of them. But if they do, I don't think the message is getting across.
There was a Nobel laureate by the name of I. Rabi. And people used to ask him, what made you so smart, smarter than anybody else? And he said, when we came home, usually the mother asked every child, what a good answer did you give today in school? When I came home every day, my mother said, what a good question did you ask today in school? And
Yeah,
he
that's
said this made a very big difference.
yeah. I mean,
I
instead of
never
just
even
repeating what you're
thought
told.
about that. That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah. But this what he said that every day his mother asked him, what a good question did you ask?
yeah. No, it's key. I mean, it's key being able to ask that. Especially with like your focus around peace building, and I can't stress enough how what the work that you do with helping people with the immigration and things like that. I would say, I don't know if you want to call it a critic of how our current immigration system is here in the United States, but I'm definitely, I mean, obviously, if somebody commits a crime, no matter, obviously you have to, a violent crime, you got to go. But outside of that, we have a lot of things in this country that Americans don't want to do, and that's okay, right? That's part of what America is. You're free to do as you want, but sometimes we've gotten in the habit here of treating, if you want to call somebody an immigrant, outsider, however you want to label it, is there something as if they're more of a bother than they are a help.
Right.
Immigration is what made America what it is.
Therefore, my book really, I wanted to show that you can be, they call immigrant, and do for the world much more than a lot of other people. And it's a call for action. It shows that everybody can make the world, the planet, a better place.
Yes.
And this is why I wrote the book. Calling for action, everybody do something. I used to tell my students, every day before you go to sleep, think of what you did good for somebody else, not for yourself. And if you did something, you had a very good day.
I never really thought, man, that's a good piece of advice. I mean, it's something that I'll
Yeah,
probably try.
yeah.
I mean, it's, and so obviously you've got a good background. So I'll ask you this, being science. So my my study of history and things that I've looked at, the Middle East used to be like the mecca of science, thought, and process, and just everything in general. That used to be where, if you wanted to learn, that's where you went in the ancient world.
Many, many years ago.
And now it just seems that, like, now, and I don't know, I've never lived there, but it's just from an outsider looking in, right? From what I'm told in the media and what I see from people here, because Michigan has a city called Dearborn, biggest Arab population in the
I
United
know.
States. And you know what? I tell everybody, I'm like,
But Rashida Talib,
yes, yes, she's definitely one. Not very popular even there. She's not the most popular person in the world. She cares very deeply about what she does, but I will give her a little bit of credit. She cares about her community. She's out there. She's out talking to people. She's just not somebody just sitting there saying, and then turn the camera off and going about her day. She actually, and that's something that I guess I can respect. I just don't. I don't agree with her a lot of her views. She's definitely a little on the extreme side of certain opinions. I don't even know how to process her sometimes. I know a lot of friends who are in the Democratic Party that don't agree with her stances on things. They agree with her in principle to a degree, but they don't agree with how she goes about stuff. We have a good senator here now. Her name is well, not Debbie Stabenow, now she retired. Alyssa Select.
where are you?
I'm a little bit south of Detroit. I'm in a city called Flat Rock. So I was born and raised in the city of Detroit for many years. I mean, we moved out of there, obviously when I was younger, probably tens in that ballpark somewhere. But I didn't grow up in Dearborn. We moved from there to West Atlantic. I kind of grew up in a lot of areas around Dearborn. So I got to know a lot of kids from there. And the kids that I've gotten to know from there are a lot different than what I see on TV. The kids from the Middle East, and it's such a vastly different experience. But I guess from your perspective, what made the Middle East kind of go away from it's being the center, if you want to call it the center of the world, right? Because it pretty much was the center of commerce, the center of thought, the center of
Look, this is empires grow and empires die. This is history, but there is still an island that is still a mecca for science and high tech and all that. It's Israel. Israel has 10 Nobel laureates. Israel is the startup nation. If you take your iPhone, people don't know that they are holding in their hands a lot of things that were developed in Israel.
wow.
The ways that you drive with as Israeli, people that use the platform Wix for doing their website, it's Israeli. You don't even know how many. Therefore, when you drive into every city, you go through a corridor. Apple, Microsoft, IBM, all of them have companies in Israel. They say they go where the talent is. And the point is, Egypt was once a center for science, it was really, especially Alexandria, but things changed, and it's a different Egypt now. It's for sure not the center of any of these things, and let's hope that if ever there will be peace in this part of the world, we'll be able to bring it back to flourish. Because when you fly over the Middle East, you know exactly where are the borders with Israel because it's all green and next to that is all yellow. Because they developed drip irrigation, they developed the way for salination. The whole world comes to learn how to deal with the water from Israel. Before there were relationship with China, and I used to see already Israeli consultant on water in China, in Cuba, everywhere without having relationship. But the world takes a lot of the talent and the time to really develop things. It takes a lot of resources, human resources, needlessly, because the people, and I know the people of the region, I know with every country in the region. I have friends in all of them. I visited many of them. People want to be together. They love each other. It's they want to work
Yes.
together. It's the politician that prevent it and cause all what is going on. And
That's
this is the problem.
yeah. I mean, I feel like there is hope for the future. The one thing I've just kind of always seen with the universe, it kind of goes like that, right? It's like a wave, and I feel like we're definitely going through a little bit of a down spout right now with a lot of things.
Lot is going on. My God.
But with things that you've done, that's gonna, those people that you've impacted, their kids are gonna learn things of that nature, and it's just gonna spread over time.
This is why I wrote the book to influence more people to join me in the movement. Nature magazine wrote a review on my book, and then they have every day few paragraphs on articles that they picked up. But in the middle, there is always quote of the day. And one day, suddenly, quote of the day was from my book. And then they advertised the book. But the quote of the day, they said, in order to have an atom bomb, you need a critical mass of uranium 235 to start a chain reaction. So I used this and I said that I hope to form a critical mass of scientists to start a chain reaction for peace. And this was the quote of the day that Nature magazine picked up.
We need more people thinking like you. I mean, I'm a vehement anti-war person. It doesn't help any of us. All it does is it hurts people. And there's a lot of good people, and who knows the minds that we've lost through war.
Let's hope the wars will come to an end. The hostages will come home. Every day is a day too much, and
Yes.
we can live in peace. I see
Yes.
it. I see it in my own eyes. We live in peace for almost a week. In the conference, the people want to work, the scientists want to collaborate and help develop all the other countries that can get some help in science and technology. So the people want it.
It's just a matter of figuring out how to get it there without everybody fighting.
Right. We need more people to push for that, to get involved. If I would have more money, I have to raise the money. I would have more. Now I have 700 scientists in the network, 17 Nobel laureates. If I would have money to bring more, and we would grow it more and more, And remember, these people, if they are professors, they have students, they have influence on the student. The influence is much more than just the people that attend. But we need more, and therefore my book calls for action.
No, and that's we need more people calling for action, and that's like I had. That's kind of why I started the middle ground because that's just
I hope that if there are people there that they will read the book and
yes.
will help to make the planet a better place.
No, hopefully it would make my life a lot easier.
Yeah.
I've got sons growing up in this world, so a better place for them is it would be a good thing for them. I'll put it like that. That's I want a better future for my sons where there's not as much fighting, not as much animosity. There will always be people disagreeing, but it's the
There is
animosity.
one thing disagreeing, there is another thing fighting and killing because you disagree.
Yes. Yeah, and that's
Sadly, I live in Evanston, Illinois. It's where Northwestern is. But Chicago is like a battlefield. Every
yes.
weekend you have so many people being killed that Chicago is more dangerous than any other area. Every weekend people die.
Detroit is still a dangerous place, but it's gotten a lot better, especially as they've created more and more economic opportunity for the city. It's really kind of helped it get back on its feet. For most of my life, Detroit was kind of just straight downhill. When one building burned, they boarded it up, and that was the end of it. And now they're rebuilding everything. Now they've built their skyscrapers in Detroit. Because I've been to Chicago many times.
Oh, it's a gorgeous city. I think it's the most beautiful city. The architecture in Chicago is unique, and all the famous architects built, and the fact that you cannot build on the lake, it's only for a park. It's gorgeous. Chicago is beautiful, and the culture in Chicago, Chicago Symphony, the Lyric Opera, the Art Institute, a terrific city, but
Heavy Italian influence in Chicago from the Italian immigrants. A lot of them went there at one point.
yeah.
That in New York, Chicago and New York. Well, Zafra, I really appreciate you coming on, and it's I definitely learned a lot. I mean, especially about the conference because I had no idea about a lot of those things. Right? It's just not something that comes
Oh,
across your
read
your
my
news feed every
book.
day.
Read
I
my
most definitely
book.
will.
Write a review on Amazon so the algorithm brings it up there.
Yeah, I know. It's like I said, and if you catch any of my other stuff, I always tell people that we need more things like that in this world. Like we need more people saying, "Hey, I don't got to see eye to eye with you, but that doesn't mean you're not a good person."
Yeah.
And the stuff you're doing, especially with science, and because science right now it's under battle, it's under fire, and most of it I
Then
don't
we
think is
will become
justified.
like the countries in the Middle East.
Yes, and we will.
If
It's if
there
we
is no
don't,
funding, you cannot do science.
and I think that will bounce back as things simmer down to
Oh,
a point.
I hope so. And soon, because I remember when Reagan became president, he eliminated the Division of Science Education in NSF, National Science Foundation. And a year later, after everybody was fired and they closed it, they reopened.
Wow,
They
he realized
realized
quick.
yes, he acted quick to reopen.
Plus, I mean, at least he was. I don't want to say man enough because that's not the right way I'm trying to say, but at least he had the foresight to go, okay, I was wrong. Let's do the right thing. Whereas I don't know if our current president would do the same thing. Not that I'm not
Hope
criticizing or praising, but I would hope that if somebody brought something to him that showed
I
that same
think he
thing,
needs a good advisor to tell him that.
yeah,
And
if it's
I
somebody he
think
trusts.
Elon Musk was very bad for him with his advice.
Yeah, it was definitely two eccentric individuals. It was essentially as if you were trying to make a bomb go off, keeping the two of them close together for a while, and that's eventually what happened. Their personalities are too similar. Too similar.
Everybody knew that there will be an explosion. The question was when.
Yeah, I didn't think it would go down the way it would go down. I thought that I thought Elon had a little bit more civility than he ended up having in the end, and he proved that he, to me, was very similar to the very person he was criticizing. What he did was a mirror of what he was criticizing him for. So, but I mean, Elon Musk is still one of the, if you want to say, brighter minds or brighter business leaders, however you want to word it. Uh, and without him, I don't know if SpaceX would have ever fully gotten to the
Yeah, he
spot that it's
just
at.
his ex just brought to space one of the Israeli satellites 2 days ago.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah, yeah, 2 days ago.
Yeah, it's there's a lot going on, and like I said, your book is, and some of the stuff you're doing. When I see certain things and I go, man, this is something that I think people just need to hear about. That's when I'm like, people need to hear about this. Diplomacy is, to me, is the core of everything, whether it's science, banking, business, your neighbor. It's at the core, and they don't teach that. They teach not but in general, they teach be true to who you are, and everybody else is wrong. And I'm so against that method of thinking. It drives me up a wall. And I tell my son all the time, because he'll come home and be like, well, my teacher told me that this person or this person was wrong. I said, well, I'm sure that person will probably say the same thing about your teacher. I said, but keep an open mind. I told him, I said, find out whatever you think you need to find out, and think for yourself. I said, always think for yourself. Don't let one way of thinking control the way you operate. I said, that's where people lose. So, but again, Zafra, I thank you for coming on. Stop here.